here in Atlanta. So that means from 9 o'clock Atlanta time, which is 6 a.m. Los Angeles, until 10:30. Yeah, 10:30 in Atlanta, from 9 to 10:30. I have been teaching Torah.
Oh my!
And now I am going to be teaching Torah. And I hope I get it right this time.
Can you tell us why you're in Atlanta? Is there anything special? Anything special going on in Atlanta that brings you there?
Well, just the trip, which thank God ends tomorrow morning, and I will be able to return home. Our back off, Steve Miller. Okay, so
why do we only get 1 hour?
yeah, I'll tell you why, because they served a bagel brunch starting after 1 hour. And I'm not going to go. Okay, you asked, I just told you. Now, our daughter, Aviva, last week got her doctorate, her doctor of ministry from the Hebrew College in New York. And she is now a doctor. And then we came to Atlanta to witness the graduation of our grandson from Georgia Tech. And also last night, I spoke at my emeritus congregation, and it was actually delightful. It was really very nice. And then this morning, the hour-and-a-half Chevra Torah, and then tonight there's a big gala dinner, and then we head back tomorrow morning. No, tomorrow afternoon, because I have one more meeting tomorrow morning. It's been, I may come home and go to sleep immediately.
Sorry, you're so boring.
Well,
You have nothing to do.
Actually, the people last night were very pleased, because last night I rolled out my first effort to talk about the new book in public. And I did it because I wanted to hear myself how I was sounding in a public venue about the ideas in the book. And that was important to me. So we were able to do that. There was a nice sized crowd, and it was kind of scary, but the response was very gratifying. So that was good.
When does the book come out, Stanley?
The book goes to the publisher mid-June. Given the supply chain difficulty, they can't get paper and stuff. It probably will not be out before August. But the publisher gets it now, and I'm very excited. I am excited to see all of you. I think this is just great. So I see Eric, I see Marina, Jason. Good to have you here, Jason. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Okay, what are you up to, Jason?
So I just got back from Israel. I was with Randy Freed. He used to work at the temple. I was part of the trip called the March of the Living.
Yes.
So, and I just want to join some more. I want to be more part of the community at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, because I'm 19 years old, and I want to learn more about my past, and I want to feel more connected to my ancestors.
All right, does anyone vote against that, or are we okay?
We're all good.
Okay. Jason, you went to Poland as well as to Israel?
No, because of the war, we couldn't go to Poland, so we just went to Israel.
Yeah.
So Rabbi Leader actually got me on this trip.
I'm sorry?
Rabbi Leader got me on the trip.
Super. Excellent. That's part of his construction format. He's building a future with you. Okay, you're more than welcome. Your questions, your participation be great. I see Karen, I see Dee Dee, I see Ron, Barbara. I see 008-204. What the hell is that? Right, you don't know. Okay, fine. Now I'll learn to call you 008-204, and that'll work fine. I see Harvey and Mara. Brad, I see you with fear and sorrow and happiness. Carrie, okay. And you guys are going this way. Remember that Shurat Hadin is a right-wing organization. You know that, and
Yes.
that's fine. But, know that. Right, what do we have? Natalie and Effie, Cindy, who left, Howard. Hi, Kevin. Merle, Doris. Hi, Doris. Steve Miller, Diane, Susie. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Right. Okay, we're going to get started with Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kiddushanu Kotav Vitzivanu Lasok B'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, in terms of calendar, folks, May 19th, remember, is Lag Bomer. And if you're interested in outdoor bonfires, roasting hot dogs, barbecue, that's the day, Lag Bomer, May 19th. And to remember, May 25th, current events. We had a, really challenging session on abortion this past week on current events. And there'll be some things, there'll be follow-up and so forth. So that's great. So May 25th, the next current events class. I didn't see Jim Ruxin. Let's see. I still don't see Jim Ruxin. Okay, so Cindy, do you have any announcements to make? Cindy, I don't see either. Cindy is gone. We're going to get started with our text. First of all, anyone have anything special besides Jason had something very special? Anything special going on in your lives right now? Anything at all? Anything happening that you want to share with us? Share with the community? No.
Well, no, I just wanted to share. Last week on Monday, I was on Dr. Phil. It was kind of cool. He gave me a really cool plug, said I was the best of the best. I don't want to take it away from you, Rabbi Stan, but it was Dr. Phil who said it.
Oh,
Let me get this straight, Kevin. You were actually on Dr. Phil's show?
Yes, I was an expert. I examined a cell phone, but they treated me like a movie star. It was, just incredible. Oh, I also wanted to say, I think my family's going to be going to university on Friday, the 27th. There's a dinner over there, dinner in Shabbos. I don't know if anyone mentioned that.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's no longer university. What's it called now?
Resnick.
The Resnick Family Campus.
The Resnick Family Campus. Okay. And they're closing it down as of the end of May, right? The end of May, they close it and they start construction after that. So that's fine. Okay, Cindy's still going. Any other announcements? If not, we're going to move forward. Okay, now, there are two narrative interruptions in the book of Leviticus. If you look, Effie wants me to get right to the text. If you look at Leviticus 24, Leviticus 24, verse 10 and following, we're going to get to that today. That's a narrative interruption. That's a story in the middle of the book of Leviticus. There are
Yeah.
only two stories, interaction, people, not just rules, in the book of Leviticus. The grand prize today goes to anyone who can identify the other narrative interruption. Clock is ticking. Tick, tick, tick. What's the other narrative interruption in the book of Leviticus? Oh, wait a second. I see Carrie. Okay, Carrie.
When the two sons come to the altar and they are set on fire.
Wow. Okay. I'm glad I didn't offer a real prize because I didn't expect anyone to come up with that. Okay. So yeah, Nadav and Avihu was a narrative interruption. It's a story. Carrie, you look so happy. The story of Nadav and Avihu that brought strange fire, and then the fire consumed them and so forth. And this is the second narrative interruption. And so we're going to get to it. And there's lots of stuff to talk about. First of all, I want to go to chapter 24, verse 1 and 2. And because this is a favorite of mine, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, command the Israelite people to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, for kindling lamps regularly. Ladies and gentlemen, what is the sermon? This is it. You got to write the sermon. The text is, the Israelites have to bring clear oil of beaten olives for lighting. What's the sermon? Very important. Rabbi,
Where did you find the olives?
Oh, yeah. Howard.
I think there was a radio program called The Eternal Light, and that it always started out with reading that verse. Is that a sermon?
Okay. Yeah, Eternal Light was a program sponsored by the conservative movement, if I remember correctly. I think Jewish Theological Seminary. Yeah, we used to listen to that. But that's not the sermon. What's the sermon? To bring you a clear oil of beaten olives. Clear oil, beaten olives. What's the sermon? Okay.
Why the clear oil?
Hanukkah, I said. I don't know. We
Yeah.
light the candles when we light the candles, no?
How do you get clear, pure, perfect olive oil?
Stepping on.
Don't you?
First pressing.
You strain it or press it? Oh,
What's the word in the text? Beaten.
beaten olive
Beaten.
oil. Beaten.
Every rabbi in the country has delivered a sermon on the perfection of the Jewish people is because we have suffered throughout history. Like the olives have to be beaten before they can produce pure, beautiful oil. The Jewish people, by having suffered, have achieved a purity of morality which places us above the rest of the world. You don't have to accept that at all. I'm just saying this is, okay, yours says pressed. I get that, Steve. But most often, let me just, katit lamaor really has the sense of being beaten, of being, abused, being, okay, pressed is also a physical act against the olives. So just remember, we have benefited from thousands of years of suffering so that our message can be purified. We are the pure olive oil bringing light to the world. The other way to respond to that is, thank God we have electricity so they don't have to beat us anymore. But in any event, that's there. And I love the text. It is a great source for rabbinic discussion. Now, I need somebody to read verses 10 through 12. This is what we're going to be focusing on. Steve Miller, you have your hand up. You're muted.
Before we get to that, couldn't part of this message be that we can only shed light and do what's right if we follow the commandments and act in a way that's pure of heart?
Yeah, that's yeah. I like my sermon better, but yeah, okay. Yeah. We had quite a discussion this morning already about the role of the Jewish people in history based on that verse. But I want to move ahead. I need someone to read 10 through 12. Do I have a volunteer? A volunteer. A volunteer. Okay, I see Doris. Okay, Doris.
Then there came out among the Israelites one whose mother was an Israelite, and whose father was Egyptian. And a fight broke out in the camp between that half Israelite and a certain Israelite.
Go on.
The son of the Israelite woman pronounced the name in blasphemy, and he was brought as Moses. I'm having trouble reading this thing. Now his mother's name was Shiloni, daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan, and he was placed in custody until the decision of the Lord should be made clear to them.
There are so many things. Thank you for the reading. There are so many things in these simple 2 verses. There came out among the Israelites. In the Hebrew text, vayetze, they went out. And the rabbis say he went out because he was about to abandon all of his Jewish commitments. The rabbis come down on this guy really hard. Vayetze, he went out, meaning he left, he abandoned his Jewish principles to do something horrendous. Eric?
It sounds like the Spock tale in Star Trek. He was half Vulcan and half human, and he had obligations. He was in both camps, so he had to choose between one life and one. He had to choose between Vulcan Academy and then Starfleet. He chose Starfleet, and it's like choosing his own path. He was had to choose his own path to go to. Because that's what I got from that, because I'm a Star Trek fan, and the backstory with Spock, he was from Vulcan blood and Earth blood. So he had 2 paths to choose.
We're gonna need to talk about that. I just got stopped by Ray Kosarin, who every once in a while posts things that we all really ought to look at. When you call out the names of everyone you see, it makes me feel as if I'm watching a Jewish romper room. Okay, thank you, Ray. I don't know, Jewish romper room, that can't be all bad, right? Okay, now, when we're looking at this, there came out, we talked about, among the Israelites, one whose mother was Israelite and whose father was Egyptian. Talk to me about what's important in that, please. And there's a lot of stuff. Sukasa.
I think maybe it's a mixed marriage, and what I'm wondering is when he took the name of, I guess, of God in blasphemy, is he going to be blamed because of his half of Egyptian blood?
We're going to get to that. We're focusing, we're circling around the topic. It's there. One whose mother was Israelite, whose father was Egyptian. I see Effie, and then Kevin, and then Ray. Okay.
It shows, first of all, that there was intermarriage. between Israelites and the Egyptians. And second, it shows that this man was Jewish because his wife was Jewish. I mean, his mother was Jewish.
Mm-mm.
Okay, we're going to get back to that. I see Kevin.
Yep.
Okay. Actually, I guess I'm wrong, or I didn't know whether there was a marriage there, because nothing's talking about the father. It's talking about the mother, and the mother raised the son. And I guess there's a question whether, the son wants to, go to the father's side or not.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, Ray.
Thanks. Let me just unmute here. So it's hard for me, at least in this translation, to read this without already getting a kind of stench of xenophobia coming off of the text. And I will admit I am looking at it as an extremely enlightened 21st century man with who aims not to practice xenophobia. And I recognize these times will be different in ways I can't begin to know. That said, it sounds to me like the same kind of vague posturing that we hear whether a real estate agent is showing you someplace and says, but what you have to worry about in this neighborhood are the cooking smells. Or when a politician talks about Mexico is not sending their best. This feels to me like they are larding whoever, whatever consensus established, I believe probably an oral telling that was then redacted into the fixed text, was evolving justification for the punishment to come. And while it says there came out, which I'd be curious if a Hebrew speaker can tell me more the nuance of the Hebrew, because that sounds vague in the English. I suspect vague in the Hebrew also, but I'd like to know for sure. It seems slippery to me. And I also have to believe, but a historian will know better than me, that in this tribal and wandering period, this particular mixed union was not going to by any means be the only one. There were probably many, I will guess, and that this is a way of trumping up the sentiment against this particular person because of this mixed heritage for the to justify the outcome. So
Thank you.
those are my reactions.
I'm going to take Steve Miller, and then I'm going to try to respond.
Well, the first thing is I want to point out, I agree with Eric. I think that the father determines what the child is, not the mother at that time. But what I think is interesting is this is all happening while they're wandering in the desert, and which indicates, nobody was going back to Egypt. As we've said many times, a bunch of Egyptians probably came with them and were treated as part of the community. So we're years and years, and they're all part of this big community, whatever they are. We probably haven't quite become a people yet. And it's interesting that they're drawing this distinction when I thought the goal was to embrace those people in the community.
Okay, thank you. Let me attempt to deal with just a bunch of the things. And really, there's a lot here. The simple one, vayetze, and he went out, is a simple, ordinary Hebrew word meaning he went out, hu yatsa. And they use it in modern Hebrew, and it doesn't mean anything more than he went out. He went outside. He did something. But the rabbis take that vayetze, that he went out, and they say he went out of the Jewish norm. He challenged things. So they listed the things that would be the worst things that he could do. For example, he argued that the mitzvot are illogical. Now, that's not in the Torah text, right? It's Vayetze, he went out. The rabbis looked for what could be the most damaging thing that this person could say. The mitzvot are illogical. They're not good. This is not a good thing. So that would undermine a lot of Jewish life. Fine. Okay. And therefore, Vayetze, other rabbis say, he was such a bad person that he lost his claim in the world to come. The rabbis can say that even though the people in the biblical period had no concept of world to come. There's a rabbinic concept, but the rabbis wrote about that too. But let's look at this. There was an Israelite. Folks, how in the Torah period did someone convert to Judaism? How?
He said, I want to be a Jew.
Actually, it's probably not that complicated. Howard?
He married a Jewish woman.
A person, the conversion usually is of a woman marrying a man.
Right.
And a woman marries a man, let's say of the tribe of Benjamin or the tribe of whatever, Shimon, whatever the tribe. Like in the story of the book of Ruth, Ruth marries Boaz, she becomes part of the Jewish people. Whither thou goest, the whole business. There was no other conversion. Marriage allowed you to become part of the male spouse's tribe. The problem is, does it work in reverse? Does an Egyptian who marries a tribal member of the Jewish people woman become part of her tribe? Overwhelmingly, the feeling is no. So the setup is strange. An Israelite whose father was Egyptian. In many ways, this guy is already outside the camp. Sukasa.
In those days, wasn't it the male line rather than the female line? This is before the Romans came through and created rape and so forth. So at that point, weren't you considered Jewish by the father? So
totally. The original patrilineality was the original process. And it was a process of, I marry you, I'm a female, you're a male, I marry you, I am part of your tribe, welcome. That's it. I'm part of the tribe. That's all they had.
So isn't this fellow then Egyptian, according to that description?
It opens up. It opens up. This is going to be uncomfortable. A real question about conversion. This verse opens up a major conversation in the Talmud about conversion. And it isn't all great. Rashi and Ibn Ezra wanted to kosher the kid. And so they said the father had converted to Judaism. The problem is the language. There was no conversion like that back then. There was no conversion. So that's a problem. Then Ramban Nachmanides raised a challenge about whether a convert is a full-fledged Jew. And even if, in other words, even if Rashi Ibn Ezra were correct, and we have no way of knowing because the text certainly doesn't say anything, and then Rashi and Ibn Ezra said father converted. Rambam then bounces back and says, even if he converted, which we know he couldn't have because they didn't have conversion, but don't worry about that. is conversion real? And the mess is that the rabbis in that day, in the Talmudic period, I'm going to say this nicely. We filter out the non-supportive approach for conversion when teaching the attitude of Jews toward conversion. That means that there were rabbis who taught that converts are more precious to God than the high priest. And we always teach potential converts this approach, which is fine. But we don't teach that a number of rabbis viewed conversion with hostility or deep uncertainty. Now, an early comment was made is whether this passage reflects a Jewish, what was the word? It wasn't racism, there was another word.
Xenophobia.
Xenophobia, thank you. Who said that originally? Xenophobia. Who raised xenophobia? Okay. So there were rabbis who had xenophobic reactions to conversion. You know, given our past few classes, how much I believe that Jewish tradition is sanitized by succeeding generations. How we come to understand Judaism is then used to wash what came before, so that only the things we approve of end up being Jewish. But we have to be open enough to say that the rabbis, to be polite, were not 100%, all of them always in favor of conversion, and some viewed conversion with great hostility. In the Jewish world today, let me tell this story with no identifying characteristics. I have met a person in a conversion class who was going to be marrying a Jewish person. And the person in the conversion class wanted to become Jewish, to marry a Jewish husband, have a Jewish home. The mother-in-law to be from the groom's side did not know that the person in the conversion class was in a conversion class, thought that that person was Jewish. Then came the confrontation, which is where I came in, where the mother found out and told the potential daughter-in-law, conversion is a fake. I don't believe in it. You will never be a Jew. Not only is this an ignorant position, but among the ultra-Orthodox, which this wasn't, there is a qualifying acceptance of a convert. Part of how the rabbis react to this passage reflects that. Thank God this point of view did not become the majority point of view. But we can't read this without understanding that the world doesn't always agree with what we believe. I see Brad, I see Kevin, I see Sue, I see Steve.
It's a hand.
Brad.
Well, Rabbi, I have an altogether different reading of this text. And correct me, please. We're in the holiness code. Are we not still?
We are.
Okay, so where's the holiness here? And where that takes me is the backstory to this fight. We're not told why the fight took place, but wouldn't we assume that it is the Israelite who somehow maybe bullied the other? I mean, we're dealing here with the other, the one who is not the same. And isn't the message then, in terms of holiness, that even in abusive situations, there's no justification for blasphemy, even in abusive situations? And that's the holiness message here.
Okay, I'm going to respond to your very pertinent question about, isn't this the holiness code? Brad, this story is an intrusion. It's a literary intrusion. It doesn't connect with what went before. It doesn't connect with what went after. It's a story that was dropped in, and the editors wanted the story in for whatever purposes that we can discern. Okay? This does not flow from the holiness code. It is in the middle of it. Okay, I wanted to make that clarification. We always respect the fact that these texts are severely edited. And by the time the final editing was done, people were inserting things to meet contemporary issues. Now, I'm going to give you one specific example. Okay? I want you to look at, where am I? You know, being blind really helps. Okay, in verse 11, his mother's name was Shlomi, daughter of Dibri, of the tribe of Dan. That is a flag waving in the air, Brad. Why do they make her of the tribe of Dan? Any thoughts, anybody? Okay, I'll tell you. Dan is situated in the northernmost corner of the land of Judea. When the tribes divided and there was a southern kingdom of Judah, northern kingdom of Israel, Dan was in Israel and I can do this without the hand, was in the northern corner of the kingdom of Israel. It is pure kingdom of Israel. Today, that area has one of the best fish restaurants in all of Israel. Dag al-Hadan, the fish restaurant near the Dan River. Yes, but setting that aside, the northern kingdom was viewed by the final editors of the Torah as a place of sin and turning away from God. So making her of the tribe of Dan clearly indicates that they were trying to make a point. Don't be like them. And I'm going to give you one more example. The golden calf. How did the golden calf get written into the story of Exodus and put in the text several chapters after the Israelites left Mount Sinai? When the event of the calf was supposed to take place while Moses was on Mount Sinai. I see Howard. Go ahead.
I think maybe it was a reference to the Northern Kingdom where they actually had a golden calf.
That is precisely 100% true, except for they had two. But yes, 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 and yes. So the text is an attack on the religious proclivities of the people in the Northern Kingdom. That's why she is who she is, and that's why she married an Egyptian, and that's why she had a blaspheming son. Okay? Because she is from the north, they had golden calves, they didn't worship correctly. But I want to go on. There's so much, and there's so many hands up, and I think that is great. I see, okay, Carrie Ray, go ahead.
Yes, Rabbi, you mentioned Nachmanides and his attitude toward conversion and his suspicion of conversion. If I'm right, Rambam was from Spain. Correct?
No.
Do I have the wrong Nachmanides versus Maimonides?
You got it.
Okay.
It's my problem. Jewish life gives us both. Maimonides, Nachmanides. Maimonides was the Aristotelian logician. Nachmanides was the Kabbalistic mystic. They are different people.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I saw Sukasa was up and Kevin was up. And Steve. Yeah.
Just a quick question. What about, does circumcision play a part in conversion at that time? In other words,
no, there was no circumcision process as part of conversion because there was no conversion process.
okay.
It just, I'm sorry, Sukasa, it's complicated. We all want to read back into the past what we have for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't there. Kevin.
Sorry, I don't see the conversion bit. I still see the kid as being a bastard and being like picked on his whole life. And now he has an accuser that's saying he said something and he can't defend himself. He's taken in custody. Nothing about the accuser being taken in custody. He's taken in custody and he's given judgment.
I love what you said for one reason, Kevin. I've never thought of that. Okay? I never thought of that approach. It's a fascinating idea. The guy was bullied all his life as a half-breed and then gets in this fight and is singled out for punishment. Let's hold that. I see Steve, I see Harvey, Ray. Please, this is
I have two quick questions. The first is, I don't understand why, if we are a people who is trying to be a light unto the nations and share what we know to be true to all people, why we wouldn't welcome conversion. And secondly, going back to whether he converted, when you talked about the woman converting, it was because she went and lived with the family of the husband. Well, in this case, especially since it's Egyptians, not with Egyptians at all, if the husband then is incorporated into the family of the wife, why should that be treated differently?
okay. Simple, Steve. First of all, please, there is no conversion process in the Torah period. Secondly, the adoption into the community was almost always a woman marrying a man. The man's tribal identity is automatically conferred on the woman. Okay?
Regardless of where they live, with what group they live? Because in most cases, the woman goes to live with the man. Here, the man's coming to live with the woman.
And we could make a story. We can do that. It's just not here. We can do that. But in the normal process, There was no conversion. There was an adoption into a tribe, and that was the woman joining the man's tribe. Remember the daughters of Tzalafchad, and they had all kinds of trouble with inheritance rights. It was fixed a little bit, but the tribal affiliation belongs to the man. Merle.
Now, I was gonna say, in the newer, more modern commentaries, like the women's commentary or the newer Plout or any other ones that you see popping up around the world, is conversion mentioned anywhere there?
I can't comment because I would have to comment on the whole women's commentary. I'm not expert on the major discussion points. I'm
just curious.
I am certain that they discuss conversion, but they couldn't, wouldn't challenge the fact that there was no conversion in this era, and there was tribal adoption. That's all there was.
So it was called tribal adoption in any case when you got married, but it doesn't mean you became Jewish by that adoption.
There was, well, folks, there was no Jewish like a religious identity. This is, I think that we're probably going to get censored, and Elon Musk is going to drive us off the internet. But there was no Jewish then.
Okay,
There were,
I got it.
The Israelites, they were a tribe. They became a nation, and affiliation was through the tribal connection. Later, in the Second Temple period, especially in the period of Ezra and Nehemiah, you have conversion, but not here. Not here. Okay, Harv, Mara.
Okay, I have a question, troubling. You keep saying the husband of the Israelite woman. Where does it say they were married? And if they were married, how did they get married back then?
They probably went to a non-denominational minister. No, I don't, wait. They call themselves, let's see what it says here. ויצא וינצו במחנה בין ישראל ויקוב בין האישה הישראלית בין אישה מצרי. It doesn't say anything about how they were related. If Vayetze ben Isha Yisraelit, and the son of the Israelite woman, of an Israelite woman, the Israelite woman, Vahu ben Ish Mitzri, and he is the son of an Egyptian man. Now you could go to, they weren't even married.
Yeah.
You could go to that, but I could never believe that a Jewish woman would have a child out of wedlock. That could not possibly have occurred. I take that back. But it doesn't say they had a chuppah at Wilshire Boulevard and this and that. It doesn't say. It
so
says
Kevin could be right.
Son,
Kevin Cohn.
He's the son of these two people. The point being, one was Jewish, one was not. One was Israelite, one was not. Mara.
And you keep saying there's no Judaism yet, but when the Israelites enter the land of Canaan, there are Jews there. There are people, is that not correct? Practicing what we would call some form of Judaism?
Mara, we're talking process. When a small group of the family of Jacob, the Israelites, left Egypt and came to Canaan, they rejoined the rest of the Israelite population. At this point, technically, the religion is called Israelite. It is an Israelite religion. What we would call Jewish is much more mob rules. Kevin, what are you, in a bad mood? Okay. Jewish is much more Second Temple. Let's say 4th century, 3rd century, you can start dealing with terms of Jewish. But prior to that, no. No. Did I answer your question? If I missed it, come back at me.
No, you answered my question, and then I have one other point, which is you keep saying that this particular story is an interruption in the text. And I question saying that because, first of all, in any literary text, what an author puts in is not an interruption. It's part of the overall argument. And then secondly, I would say you keep referring to the editors, and we know for sure that there were editors. I mean, I'm not necessarily going back to the argument of the text is written by God, or the text is divinely inspired and put down. But it seems to me to talk about the editors and give them the ultimate, provide them as the ultimate explanation of why the text reads as it reads, is to make a number of assumptions.
You have a solid basis both in literature and in Torah study, clearly. And the making of assumptions at the end of an academic research to close the circle is often done. You go so far and you try to form the gestalt. You try to finish up the picture. It is my belief, this couches it carefully, that the texts, the sacred texts of the Jewish people, accumulated over centuries, were radically revised and edited during the period of the return from Babylonian exile. I will give that the 6th, 5th centuries. So 500s, 400s. During that time, it is my belief, and I'm trying to say it, my belief, that the texts were radically rewritten to reflect the need to build a Jewish people that did not exist prior to the Babylonian exile. Prior to that time, our texts spoke of king and Jerusalem and temple, a people who were citizens of a country with a central worship and whose identity flowed from that. But when they returned from Babylonian exile, there was a dramatic need to rewrite the texts so as to weave a people together that did not require a king, a temple, and national borders. That is my assumption. Now, am I going to tell you I am totally right? No. Am I going to tell you that what I'm sharing with you is very much reflective of current cutting edge biblical research? That's what scholarship of today is saying. Does that make them right? No, but it's where we have come. And you're forcing me to sound humble, and I'm not really, but in this case, I am humble. I am not a Bible scholar. I am a student of contemporary Bible scholarship. And what I'm sharing with our trusted group is this kind of approach. So when they see Dan, the tribe, they immediately go to bringing the people of the North into the traditions of the South. And that required major revisions of our sacred text. And that the Torah that we ended up with in, let's say, 400 BCE, in many ways significantly other than the Torah we started with 300, 400, 500 years before. Mara, does that at least?
Yeah, I appreciate that. What I'm understanding from this is that we have no way of knowing what the original text was. And therefore, our decisions on what to believe may be compromised.
Why do you ask questions that cut to the heart of the matter? That is such an annoyance. The documentary hypothesis, JEPD, the four major strands that were woven together to make the Torah, is a 19th century construct. It was pretty much beaten up in the mid 20th century for all kinds of reasons. No, we probably will never get to the original Ur text. What am I poisoning Wellhausen? What are you saying, Ray? I'm poisoning?
I can't always resist a dumb pun. I apologize.
Okay, well, when you do things like that, they're so funny. I have to react. Okay. Yeah, it's the Wellhausen hypothesis, 4 strands. It is being seriously revised, not thrown out. Wellhausen still has the major parameters of what occurred. But I'm going to tell you something. Nobody on this Zoom reads the Torah the way it's written anyway. Nobody. We read the Torah with the understandings of Jewish life already baked into us. That means that we read the Torah demanding of Torah the high moral ground as we understand morality and ethics. If we can be aware of what I call pre-understandings and see the naked Torah text, it might be very troubling. I'll give you we're running out of time, thank God. I will do Yortzeit, Yisker, I will do that. if we read the Torah text and we read the Ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, that's a glorious, glorious statement. But when it was written, it didn't mean the Gentile out there. It meant my neighbor, the Jew, or perhaps, and the non-Jews who are associating with us. It did not mean love your neighbor as yourself. That's a pre-understanding that we impose on the text. I like that pre-understanding, but it is not the original intent of the original authors of that text. I'm going to have to go too quick. I love you guys. You're driving me crazy. This is really good stuff. Ray and Effie, and we're going to stop.
Thank you. And I just wanted to engage a little bit, Mara, with your characterization, if I understood you right, of this episode being an interruption in the text. Well, no, you're defying. You're saying that this is not an interruption in the text, that the text is constructed and that this is a part of the logical flow of the text. And I'll certainly also agree with Stan's remark just now about our more contemporary understandings that we sort of project into the text. But I believe that even in the best texts in humanity, like all human constructs, like all of our tools, text is an imperfect tool. And even if it were perfectly constructed within human capability, the very fact that text is temporal, that we can only progress forward one sentence at a time when an argument may actually be innately constructed with multiple points that converge at different points, even if we're stuck, like having only one telephone line with saying one strand of it at a time. Just the experience of trying to convert an understanding into that limited bandwidth lineality of text makes it imperfect and compromised. And I believe that all rhetoric is a wrestling with the limitations of squeezing text into a linear format. So I believe that even with the best skill and intention, there are interruptions in texts because there are suspensions in text. We make a point, we suspend it while we make a parallel point that we need in order to draw a conclusion from multiple points. So there are absolutely interruptions, and I think a skilled rhetorician exploits those interruptions, never more than like the showman in a TED Talk, to play on us and obfuscate their own imperfections in their own argument and to play up our emotional responses. And I think that there is no escaping that, even if we not arrive at a text with preconceptions.
Thank you. Effie, the final word.
Quick question. I thought back in those days, all a couple had to do is sleep together to be considered married.
Effie, that's Talmudic. It's not biblical. You're correct. You're correct. But it is Talmudic. Okay. I want to mention that the Yortzeit list today contains the name of Rabbi Morley Feinstein. So I just, as you encounter the name as I read it, you shouldn't be surprised. Those who've passed away during the past month: David Burstein, Edward Cohn, Joseph Dannon, Ashley Jaffe, Linda Leisner, Yosef Nasser Soleimani. Yortzeit that have occurred during the past week: James Leo Barbanel, Grace Barkan, Evelyn Becker, William Berelson, Lester Burko, Rose Blatt, Sarah Book, Frank Castleman, Lloyd Cutzen, Benjamin Danziger, Burton Allen Eisenberg, Edith Falk, Anella Feldstein, Rabbi Morley Feinstein, Susan Pastor Fishman, Alvin Friedman, Jacqueline Furman, Manuel Green, Toby Greenberg, Jules Green, Marvin Gussman, Ben Habibi, John Held, Warner Heineman, Magda Hoffman, Alvin Anaroff, Itamar Ilya, Ike Jarris, Alberta Shield Kalish, Theodore Kapnick Jr., Ruth Karp, Jess Katz, Stanley Kirshner, Milton Krell, Jack Crevoy, Lillian Kaczynski, Harold Lederer, Eric Lesson, Leonard Lewis. Milton Leibhaber, Philip Mann, Harry Mankoff, Kitty Maslow, Sam Miner, Bernard Mogul, Janice Morgan, Jack Morris, Alan Moskowitz, Marie Edward Moss, Dennis Munchak, Philip Nelabatsky, Stella Naberger, Paul Orland, Saul Ornstein, Pauline Pizer, Leah Posel, Toby Price, Gertrude Reed, Rose Reeser, Stephen Redinger, Albert Riskin, Larry Rosenblum, Helen Rowe, Joseph Rudin, Leonid Rudyak, Robert Schlossberg, David Schneider, Meyer Schwartz, Carolyn Schwartz, Stephen Shapiro, Pamela Schulman, Robert Siegel, Norma Joy Siegel, Morris Stone, William Troy, Sam Tucker, Tom Wallach, Mark Weissman, Leo Wurtzel. If there are other names to be remembered now, we ask that you either speak the names aloud or that you carry them in your hearts. We can be as well remember those innocents killed in the Ukraine. Remember those slain in defense of the United States, those slain in the defense of the state of Israel. And we remember all those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. We join together in Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. Alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chaye chonu v'yomei chon. V'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman karim. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mabarach. Le'olam le'omei amaya. Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitpa'ar, Yitromam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shemei Kudishah, La'ela Mikol Birchata V'Shirata, Tushbachata V'Nechamata, Yamiran B'Alma, B'Imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'Chayim, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel. Make peace among all the families and nations of earth. And let us say,
Amen.
Love you, folks. I want to come home. Can I come home tomorrow, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I really.
Yes, you may.
I want that.
No, I demand that you come home.
Travel safely.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat, 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 Shabbat.
And I said, and I'll do this right now. And he was like, no, just go, I'll do it. And I said, you have to do it.
Hey, Susie, will I see you tomorrow?